Hey guys, how you doing here today? This is David Lucas back here again. Welcome back to my channel. Now on today's review, I'm back at you guys again for another review of a new movie that just came out. Movie that I've been actually looking forward to for a very long time. For the first time in a long time, I actually had a double feature out of movies that I watch in one week. I watched Venom for Thursday and then watched Many Saints New York at the theaters on Friday. So I had a two double feature of it, which is pretty cool. On today's review, I'm going to be reviewing is The Many Saints of New York, The Sopranos prequel. Yes, guys, I'm finally here, finally reviewing a Sopranos prequel, Many Saints of New York. You guys know me, you guys know I love The Sopranos, and right there I actually just got a new poster right up there of Tony and Pyomai. If you watch the show, you know the history of that picture right there. Alright, I just had to show that off a little. But The Sopranos is a show that I've always loved my whole life. I'm Italian too, so, you know, watching The Sopranos, automatically I have a connection to The Sopranos already. I always watch it. I didn't watch it when they first came out, though. I was really, really young when they first came out. I didn't watch it. I ended up watching it like a couple years ago. I ended up watching it, and then literally as I finished the show, that's when I went and found out that there's a prequel movie being made. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, what are the odds? And then, yeah, then I watched the show on repeat. I think I've started watching the show like 3 years ago, and I've already watched the show, I think, about 4 or 5 times. Yeah, I already watched about 4 or 5 times, I think. But now this movie, The Many Saints of New York, is pretty much about Dickie Moltisanti, and it's about Chris's father. Chris Moltisanti, a character from the show, is about his father and about the younger years of Tony Soprano. Even though Tony Soprano is in the plot, is not necessarily about Tony Soprano, it's mostly about Dickie Moltisanti. Now, and usually in most of my reviews, you know, I usually do the good into the bad. So I'm going to start out with the good on this movie, because there are some bad in this movie. It wasn't, again, a perfect movie. It was not a perfect movie by any chance, but it was a pretty good movie. It was a good movie that I actually really enjoyed a lot. So let's get into my review. Now, first, right off the bat, I gotta say what was so great about this movie is the whole cast. Like, literally everybody cast in their roles did a fantastic, amazing job, in my opinion. To everyone, to Paulie, to Pussy, to Silvio, everybody, Uncle Junior, Tony's mom, Livia, they all did so great. Like, everyone did their role really great in here. And I just loved every single moment of when they all were on screen, when they all were talking, their mannerisms, everything. Everybody did the roles perfectly. It actually seems like everybody seemed like they were pretty much younger versions of these roles, of these characters. And they did it perfectly, I thought. I know with Silvio, some people have some issues with Silvio with his bald hair and everything. That doesn't matter to me. I find that kind of actually pretty interesting, because Steve Van Damme is rumored to be kind of bald because he never shows his hair. So it's kind of like an inside joke, I feel like. That's kind of cool to make Silvio a little bit bald and him wearing a wig. It's kind of cool. Some of the actors right off the bat that I gotta say that did amazing, that probably stood out the most to me, is probably Corey Stoll as Uncle Junior and Vera Farmiga as Livia Soprano. They, in my opinion, just completely embodied and did their roles perfectly. Corey Stoll as Uncle Junior, as a younger version of Uncle Junior, was just great. Every moment he was on screen, there even was a moment I remember he was talking, and the camera wasn't on him, but he was talking. And for a second, I was like, oh my god, it's Uncle Junior. It's Uncle Junior talking. Like, he sounded just like him. His mannerism just like him. The way how he's all pissy and angry all the time and kind of blames everybody else for his insecurities and his own problems. I like that. I like how they did that with Uncle Junior. And I like how with the story, how it eventually ends up with Uncle Junior and what they eventually do with Uncle Junior. That completely changes your, not necessarily opinion of him, but makes you look at Uncle Junior in a little bit with more context now in the Soprano show, which I really like that they did that. And Vera Farmiga as Livia Soprano, she was great. She got her accent down. She got her mannerisms down. She was like, like that. Like, she got that down. She got her facial expressions, even down to the facial expressions she made. It was perfect. And a relationship with Tony, too, I really liked how they had their relationship, how she is a hard mom to Tony and all that. But at the end of the day, I like how we had a scene in there where it showed that she does try, though, sometimes to be a good parent, to be a good, loving parent to Tony. And Tony does try to be a good, loving son to her. There are scenes in there where they have that, but they both kind of have their issues and have their problems, and we see them explode, and I like that. And I love how what Vera Farmiga gave to this role of Livia Soprano. She completely was the younger version of Livia Soprano to the T. And also, too, I gotta mention Michael Gandolfini. That kid did amazing at the job. I call him a kid, but I'm pretty sure he's like my age. But he did an amazing job as Tony Soprano, as a young Tony Soprano. I love how, like, in there we actually see that, like, in his face, he has a lot of anger in him. He has a lot of rage building up in him. But at this time in his life, you can tell that Tony isn't yet expressed that. He hasn't yet let that all out. He hasn't been really fully introduced yet to that world. He knows of it, and he kind of wants to get involved in it, but he kind of gets pushed to the side, and we see that Dickie starts pushing him to the side a little bit too near the ending of the movie, and we see that rage start building up within Tony, especially with his mom too. We see that building up with his mom too, and to where when we go and show, we end up fully understanding why Tony is acting the way he is. Now, I really did enjoy Dickie Moltisanti in this movie too as a character. I thought he was a really interesting character. He's one of the characters that we don't know much about from the show. We never seen him in the show. He's only talked about here and there. Tony talks about him a little bit, and he basically describes how he was his mentor growing up and all that, and we do see it in this movie, I'm sorry, keep on getting confused with movies and show, but we do see him in this movie mentoring Tony, and we see that mentorship, we see that kind of connect where he's more of an uncle, like a real uncle to Tony than Uncle Junior was to him, when Uncle Junior was his blood uncle and Dickie wasn't, but Dickie was more of an actual uncle to him, and father too, than Tony's own dad. And we see that in here. I think the actor's Alessandro Navarro, I can't say his name right, I'm really sorry, I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, but he did this role perfectly. He's a guy who played Pollux Troy in Face Off. He did this role perfectly, in my opinion. He really did bring life to a character that we only knew a little bit about. He gave us what we did know about him, but yet adding on more context and more layers and more kind of subdual things inside of him, which I really liked and really enjoyed, and made me really actually like this character of Dickie Moltisanti, even though you really shouldn't be. And then it made me think this is what Tony Soprano did in The Sopranos. He was a character you shouldn't be liking, but yet you're liking him and you're rooting for him. And that's how you kind of felt about Dickie Moltisanti throughout this movie, is that he's a character where he's done some pretty bad things, but at the same time you find yourself rooting for him for some reason. This movie too is a very much of a standalone on his own movie. Like, it's not that much connected to The Sopranos, even though it has a lot of his characters and a lot of his backstory. The story itself is a very much its own private little backstory, and is not trying to take on anything that Sopranos did. It's not trying to set up anything in The Sopranos or anything like that. Just its own story being told within the world of The Sopranos that has Tony Soprano, Paulie, and all of them there too. Now, with that all being said, there are some negatives onto this movie, and I'm going to get onto the negatives on this movie right now, because there are some things that I wish where this movie did better on. Right off the bat, you probably could have tell from me saying this a lot in the review already, is that I wish this movie was maybe like an 8-episode miniseries, like an 8-hour long movie, basically. For one, I desperately want to see more of these characters. I want to see more of young Paulie, young Pussy, young Silvio, young all of them. See more young people. Get young Fetch in there. Get younger Hesh in there, because Hesh was mentioned in this movie. Get a whole bunch of younger versions of them in. Tony's dad, John Berthal, he's still alive, in which he did a great job in this role too. Bring him in. You know, I would like to have like a more of these characters. I like to be in this world more, and that's when this movie ended. I kind of felt like, like that's it. You know, that's what I kind of felt like at the end of this movie. It's like, that's really it? That's all? Because it kind of felt like it needed more. It needed more meat. It needed more character development of these characters. It needed to focus more on these characters, because yes, it is about Dickie Moltisanti, but these are also the supporting characters of this, world, and it would be nice to get a little bit more of them, get more of Tony, have more character development of Tony growing up. That would have been nice to see. That's why I wish it wasn't more 8-episode miniseries, so we would get more of that. The character of Harold too, I gotta say that the character of Harold really did have a very, not an anticlimactic ending, but a very just ending. Like, we didn't really get anything resolved with him. Anything resolved with what was going on with him and Dickie. Like, their whole story at the very ending of the movie was just completely forgotten about. It was just like Harold didn't even exist near the end of the, I think it was like 20 minutes or 30 minutes near the ending of the movie. Harold doesn't even show up, and we have no basically resolution to his character except for one little quick scene at the very end where we see him in a city and stuff like that, but it's almost like a what's the point of this scene? And we just get no resolution to this character of Harold at the end, which sucks because he actually was a really interesting character throughout the movie. And it kind of sucks when we don't really get any resolution to the character at the ending of the movie. One last thing, too, that kind of connects with my first problem with this. There was so much multiple storylines going on in this movie. Like I was saying, I wish it focused on a lot more people. Like, it had, like, a little bit more focus on what was going on with Tony and what was going on with the mob and what was going on with this and that and Dickie and the family and all that stuff. You know, it had so much in there, and the stuff that was going on in the 1960s riots and all that. It had so much in there that I felt like a 2.5-hour movie just couldn't fit. And it just was too stuffed, I feel like, and it was just, there's so much good storylines going on in here, so much good ideas, but yet just not enough time or room to express it and show it, which kind of sucks at the end of the day, which goes back to my first complaint, is that I wish it was like an 8-episode long miniseries. Now, as a whole, my overall thoughts on The Many Saints of New York is that The Many Saints of New York is a good prequel to The Sopranos. It actually is a great prequel to The Sopranos. It's a great comeback to the world of Sopranos. Each actor does their jobs respectfully well, and each one does their roles so perfectly done, especially Corey Saul as Uncle Junior and Vera Farmiga as Livia Soprano. They did their parts perfectly. And I gotta say, Michael Gandolfini did his father really proud by doing a perfectly good young Tony Soprano that I definitely want to see more of and want to see him grow up and become more of the Tony Soprano that we've seen in the show. There are some problems with this movie. This movie could have been longer or could have been into an 8-episode miniseries that expressed and developed more into the world, into the stories that was presented into this film. And the villain of Harold could have been developed more and could have had a better ending to his character. So guys, that's basically my overall thoughts of Many Saints of New York. And my overall grading, I'm going to have to give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Yes, guys, a 7.5 out of 10. I really did love this movie a lot. It was a good movie, a great comeback to The Sopranos. And I loved all the characters. I loved watching all these characters play the old characters that I knew them as. It was a great time in the movie, and at the end of the day, I will watch this movie multiple times in a row because, and I already have too, but it's a great movie and a great comeback to The Sopranos, and I like it a lot. So guys, let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts on The Many Saints of New York. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know down in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts. And as always, if you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate it all the time. Until next time, guys, see you later.